Well, good afternoon. I think I'm the last session before the final session, so thank you so much for coming in and spending a little bit of time with us in this intimate fireside chat. You're more than welcome to sit a little bit closer if you'd like to feel like you're part of the group. I have the honor. My name is Michael McCarron. I'm a partner in our advisory practice in PwC here in the Boston office. I work primarily in the cloud and digital practice with the CIO strategy group. I have the honor of interviewing Angelica Tritzo, that I do. I've been practicing. Yeah. She's the CIO and EVP of Digital Transformation at GE Vernova. I've also been practicing how to pronounce that, so I'm happy I've gotten through the hard part of this discussion. Why don't I let you introduce yourself, and then we can talk a little bit about some of what you've been going through.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. As you said, I'm the CEO for GE Vernova, which is a newly created business, so it's a little bit more than a month old. We went through quotation April 2nd at the New York Stock Exchange, which was an experience in itself. I've been also with General Electric for majority of my career, more than 27 years. And I'm really looking forward to the chat. And as you can tell, I'm Italian.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. She came to join us from Florence, so I'm just so happy that you're able to make the trip. You know, if you don't know, Larry Culp was the former CEO of all of GE, and before it split up.
No, still.
Well, still, but aerospace.
Yes.
Right. But I heard Larry on
Okay.
On one of the morning talk shows, and one of the questions they asked him was around what the transition was going to be like for the leaders in GE, and he said something that I thought was fascinating. He said they all have had other leaders telling them what to do for their entire careers in the company, and now it's on them. So there's no longer a corporate structure above these leaders in these split off units. So I have to ask you, what's it like to now be your own boss to some extent?
I still need to find my own way, because being again only 1 month by myself is like when you are becoming 18, you vote, you have a number of additional rights that you didn't have a moment ago. But you really need still to understand how further to push the envelope. But for sure, it's a dream I had, and from a personal standpoint, is a great starting point. And I'm really looking forward for the opportunity for being particularly with the company that GE Vernova is. And as you said, we have been through a lot the last, I would say, 15 years at GE. All of you know we have been in the high and a lot in the lows. In the last several years, many CEOs turned around without being able to find our way out of the troubles. Larry Culp arrived and started implementing his leadership style across everything. I mean, with Lean as for sure one of the critical recipe for success. But also, 3 years ago, he came up with this vision of saying the conglomerate era is over. We need to split what is left of GE. At the time, it was still healthcare, aerospace, and the energy businesses. At the time, it was power and renewables. And so he had this vision that we finally implemented April 2nd. And it has been very well rewarded by the investors. Our stock price went up the first month, which is not as usual for newly created companies, because you have the normal rationalization of investors. Maybe people that really wanted to be into the aerospace industry are selling our stock, but also there is a lot of vice versa in reality. So now that we are talking ourselves directly with investors, we understand that there are many out there that are really believing in the purpose that we are building. And in the name, Vernova, for the ones of you that have studied a bit of Latin, means green innovation. Ver for green and nova for new things. And so in this, I'm I'm telling you everything. We are a company that has the ambition to decarbonize and electrify the world, which is one of the most important things that we have to do in these days.
If you could give us a sense of size and scale. I know it's big. It's not just a small company that GE spun off. It's a huge company and it's very global. Maybe give us a sense of the size and scale of the company, but also what it's been like for the past year for you as the CIO of that organization to make that transition away from GE, and how have you managed your team while that's been happening?
So GE Vernova is a startup of 80,000 people, 34.5 billion of revenues this year, articulated in 3 main segments. The first one is, I would say, the more traditional power, where we generate a lot of power through gas, nuclear, steam, as well as hydro. Then we have the wind with onshore and offshore wind machineries and services. And then the third division that is the mostly intriguing in these years and also in perspective is everything around the electrification, which means all the equipments that are required to transmit, distribute, and orchestrate the electricity that is required in the world. Because now with the renewables workloads, there is way less stability in the grid. I mean, traditionally, a grid was built with a generation here and utilization there, with the flow going directly from generation to consumption. Now, in reality, there is this concept of prosumers, because every one of us or every company can become a consumer as well as a producer of electricity. And this is creating a huge risk of grid unbalance, and this is a big risk. Then you said, again, after the announcement, you know, IT is always the long pole in the tent in terms of separating bits and pieces. And in reality, GE had a tradition of high level of centralization of services. So at the spin time, roughly 50% of the GE Vernova IT spend was in reality executed by corporate. And in these services, everything that is the basic IT service, so network, data centers, email services, cybersecurity, that we have longly discussed today, help desk, PC and phones management, several corporate applications like to consolidate financials and all those things, HR systems, and probably I'm forgetting many. So we really started to unwind this complexity. We decided with the other businesses, also because this was also a special split, because in reality, no one was, so it was not a split when an HQ was remaining. In reality, everyone was going by themselves. So we really needed to have the mission to everyone gets something. So in reality, the old corporate would have been transferred in bits and pieces to the others. And so we started this pretty extensive type of work. But then one of the critical elements of preparing for a spin is really defining the new business profile. So really bringing the pieces together for us, so somewhat running an integration effort, but really working around the strategy. So what I told you a second ago wasn't clear only 12 months ago. It wasn't clear our business proposition. There was not clear understanding from the investors who could be investing on our way of working. And so in this entire coming together, one key message came straight from the investors was you really need to redefine your cost profile. And here we go. One day I was having one of those moments with my boss, Scott Strasick, the current CEO of GE Vernova. And he told me, you know what? You are doing the separation, but you also need to cut costs by 30, 40%, something like that. And I said, but it's not easy when you really don't even have things. No, how can you cut cost on something that you don't own? But the best thing was that he told me that because, and I was referring to Mike saying this was a gift given to me, which is strange, you know, that when you receive such a difficult task to accomplish, why you define that as a gift? Because in reality, that has forced me and the organization, in reality, not only me, to go after two important things. One was challenging the corporate thinking. So the G way of doing things, even in the separation, in the decision making, I had the right to say no. I don't want this, I don't like this. It's not me bad, not being playing fairly, but it's my boss that is giving me this task. So I was able to articulate in a nice manner and do a lot of pushback. The other thing is instead, again with the culture that I was referring, unleashing the potential of saying, in reality, me included, we have been with a company in general for a long time, so we know this way. We may don't think enough about, but do we really need what we have today? And so I really launched the team around one of signature sentence that I've heard in another session earlier today, challenge the status quo, which is an old leadership jargon, no? Which is very appropriate here. Because what we have today is not what we need in the future. And there is no better moment than now that we are redefining our future, redefining which type of services we want to provide to our internal and external customers, which type of company we want to be. Do we want to provide the 10 tone of grays that was the usual way of doing in GE, or one simple way of doing things? So at the very end, and we are navigating this transformation as we speak, it's extremely difficult. You need constantly to remind the team about, can you do this? Can you do that? But also, can you do it faster? Because also, the sense of urgency has to be there because the investors, I mean, our G&A are transparent now. So they will see how quickly we are able to get to the point where we have to be. So and I always say every quarter, but every month, every week, every day, every hour, that we can do it faster, it's going to have a return. And it's very simple. If we are interested as employees in the success of GE Vernova, there is no other way.
When we talked about this prior to this discussion, you used the phrase, the power of constraint.
Yes.
To define that. And I thought that was really interesting because I see a lot of companies that don't really know how to constrain that piece of their technology world and certainly don't look at it as a gift. But it does refine your thinking. That's what you had said.
Yes. No, I firmly believe that when you are constrained is when the innovation really comes. So you have a set of limitations. It can be time, it can be cost, it can be physical space. You always find a creative way. You are pushed to creative ways to solve for your problem. Without the constraints, you maybe get there, but most probably slower.
You know, we hear a lot now the word culture in everything we do. 10 years ago, I think culture meant, you know, at the end of whatever you were doing, you got a hat and a pat on the back.
Yes.
Culture means something very different now, and you had talked a little bit about what it means to you and how challenging it is, obviously, to go from where you've been to where you are now and manage that cultural shift.
Absolutely. That's a super critical, because what I needed to avoid was this to become another brutal cost out exercise, because then it would have been not particularly exciting for anyone. Would have been draining energy instead of creating an environment where everyone really feels empowered to go and set our future. So we needed to revert it in a way that, though, is not faking the reality. And so we did a very good work with, we introduced pretty quickly, and was a self-organized, so I didn't really need to chase for it, a culture committee. And this was a number of employees coming from different part of the company that was coming together on cultural topics. They were already doing like coaching, mentoring, helping each other, working maybe with DEI groups in the various sites, doing a number of different things. And so the moment that I come up with the idea, okay, I needed to really define a strategy that would be not only the classical PowerPoint page with clearly stated where we needed to go, but also with a written definition of exactly every single word of that page, what that means. Because I didn't want the interpretation. So I see a PowerPoint page, and then I understand in this way, I understand in this other way, and then we keep going in 10 different directions. Should have been scripted, where we are going, and how, with which tools. And we come up with this vision of the word about, we in IT, we are not a technology playground, first of all. So if you want to do technology playground, you go somewhere else. There are many companies that are allowing technology playground. We are here to serve our businesses, to make them better every day, driving better productivity, supporting growth, working with our customers. That's our mission. Second, we needed to build Vernova, because Vernova didn't exist only a month ago. So from the branding, the culture, you cannot imagine, or maybe you imagine how many things we needed to do just for day one. The businesses coming together, doing integration work also within the organizational way of working. So building Vernova was important. And then the third bucket is run brilliantly. And there is also a game of words again there, because there was an old strategy at the time of the Industry 4.0 a few years ago that GE issued this brilliant manufacturing. That was a trademark with our software solution to improve on the supply chain. And I always loved the word brilliant, because it's brilliant. It sparkles energy. It's a great word. And so I said, we needed to run brilliantly, which means from all the angles. So safe, secure, cost-effective, but better quality. Because I also have the ambition that at the end of the entire transformation, not only we would have reduced by the 30-40% target, but we will also provide a better service to our environment in the broad sense of the word.
You said not a digital playground, loud and clear. But I asked you before we sat down, why is GE Vernova's headquarters in Cambridge? So I think explaining, maybe
yes.
Explain that
yeah.
versus not a digital playground.
Right, exactly. When I say it's not a digital playground, doesn't mean that we don't drive innovation. In reality, again, as I said in the name, Vernova means green innovation. And the reason why we are in Cambridge was selected because in this corner of the world, they are the best technologists that are driving a lot of technology innovation, which is very much needed for our ambition of being a company that drives decarbonization while electrifying the world. And so we need a lot of new things out there. Traditionally, GE always invested a lot of money on our internal R&D, And our internal R&D works with universities like the one that are here around, with governments, to really go after the next big challenges. For example, one startup we have just, I don't recall if it is already announced or will be announced this month, a technology to create water from air. So capturing air and getting water. You can imagine that in certain parts of the world, this is particularly interesting. And so being here means that we really want, and we are effectively fostering an environment where innovation is critical. Now, digital playground is when you try, oh, I want to buy that piece of software because the friend of mine said that is so cool. But okay, but to do what? Which is the mission? So we needed to eliminate the background noise, if you wish. Innovation is instead at the center of what we do today and in the future.
So you've made it through some of the transition. You've the official day one. You're in charge. And now there's a seismic shift happening in technology, right? It's all about where we're going with machine learning, with artificial intelligence. So not much to worry about there. I'm sure it'll be just fine. But we'd love to know how you're thinking about that now as you start building out your new technology teams. How you're thinking about that transition and what that means to your company as their CIO.
For sure and I was listening to all the opinions throughout yesterday and today. There is the cybersecurity angle. Someone asked, maybe this morning, I believe the professor from Miami asked about if my company has a policy around the usage of AI for our employees. We issued that almost a year ago, beginning of June last year. And the objective of that policy is to drive awareness, making sure that they don't use it for the wrong purposes. So if I ask ChatGPT, oh, can you write a thank you email to a bunch of suppliers? Okay, for sure. But don't ask ChatGPT to do a revision of a document that you have created based out of 10 other documents containing intellectual property. So there is a bit of that is going on for sure. In reality, GE has been, and then GE Vernova has been using artificial intelligence in the traditional manner since probably the 60s, like every other company of our type. And in reality, in the latest weeks and months, we have started embedding also a little bit of Gen AI and AI also in certain of our products to customers. Obviously, it's a journey, but it's very promising. Like I was referring a moment ago about this grid orchestration software. That's a type of solution that helps our customers to balance the network. As well as maintaining the network up. So there are relatively conceptually simple solutions that we can embed, like how to maintain the grid free from trees overgrowing. Here in US, as soon as the season of the big storms comes, the grids are simply coming down because there are trees going physically on the grid itself. And so there are ways to connect and make sure that if there are vegetation that is overgrowing to the grid, you give alert and you send people only when is needed, versus sending people physically to physically monitor the grid from the beginning to the end, which is probably very difficult to represent. So coming to the end of this, in certain areas we really believe that there is a differentiation in our products. In other areas, I feel that probably we should be doubling down a bit more. But again, we are also in a difficult moment where we have the famous too many fishes to fry. So we needed to find the time to fry also this additional fish in the right manner with the right recipe. We have a number of pilots, ideas, but we are not there yet.
I think to your point, though, GE has put a lot of time and effort in the last decade or so into machine learning itself. You put a lot of technology into the sensor technology and what you're doing with a lot of the products that you guys deliver. So you've been on that journey. Your strategy is not changing a lot. You just like to double down in some of those spaces, you think, because you're already kind of thinking along those lines. There was a great debate yesterday. I don't know how many of you were able to see it around where does AI belong in a company? Does it belong with the CIO? Or does it belong as something else? Where is it with you, or run by somebody else? Where is it with GE Vernova, and where do you think it should be?
In Vernova is spread out, and to me that's a problem, but not a problem because of an ego problem I want to control. Frankly, I don't care. I have enough of my stuff, so I'm not looking for power in this moment. But to me, is more the risk of not doubling down in the right areas, and in reality, duplicating efforts.
Right.
Because if there is not enough horizontal sharing, I really believe that we can lose big opportunities. So today, again, we are a bit opportunistic, but we needed to come up with something more structured.
Makes sense. So we have a relatively short session. We wanted to give folks the opportunity. I'm fascinated by the journey she's been on, certainly. But would love to ask for your questions if you have any, and maybe we could answer some questions for you.
I'm happy to start. Hi, everyone. I have such a loud voice. Okay. I think I'm good. Does everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, it's better for the video. Sorry. Thank you. No worries. Hi, everyone. I'm Robin Stein. I'm with PwC. Maybe a question for both of you, Angelica and Mike, is what are you most excited about from a technology perspective?
You want to go first?
I see the promise of AI. I think right now, obviously there was a conference here not long ago, 6 months ago, which I think was a little early for AI conferences, but I think everyone's trying to obviously figure out what it means. But if you really just boil it down to something simple, which I think we're going to have to do, is figure out the something simple, figure out how to get data in a way that allows you to apply something simple to it. It really is going to change the world. I watched one of my teams at PwC is trying to figure out what it means to the businesses. Now, we're an audit business, we're a tax business, we're a deals business. And I watched a demo of an AI agent. And it told the agent, if you're confused, stop what you're doing, write Python, execute it, and then continue on. And I watched it do it, execute the Python, run the Python code, execute the solution, and then continue on with its problem solving. And watching that on a simple task like, please tell me what's in this spreadsheet or what's in this balance sheet, makes me think the whole world's about to change. And every job is going to be impacted in some way. And that's exciting and a little bit scary because I don't really know. I think your point about responsible AI scares me a little bit. I don't really know what controls or regulatory rules we're going to have to deal with, but I think that we are 6 months, 12 months. We're going to live in 6-month increments, not 3-year increments anymore. And that's kind of exciting.
Again, we don't know what we don't know.
No, I know.
This Gen AI is going to be the next iPhone that is going to change dramatically our life on things that we didn't even know that we wanted. Or is going to be the many...
blockchain.
Blockchain,
Yeah.
for example. Yes, that's...
Yeah.
And I've seen a cartoon very recently saying, hey, take out all those pages with blockchain and change it with AI and Gen AI. Is it really the next hype that will... hype and go. That I don't know. But to me, what continues to be super exciting, being a technologist, but a business leader with a passion for technology, is how technology is becoming more and more at the center of everything. And this will never go away. But to me, this concept of, we can do everything super quick, in 2 weeks you can do this, it's not true. I was really glad also this morning, the speech from McKinsey, saying this Gen AI story is going to take a lot of change management. To me, the best analogy is to the ERP world, because you need to have the same process, rigorous focus, data quality focus, and change management. So if you change Gen AI with ERP, it's the same story. And ERP, now I believe we have understood how to make ERP implementation successful, I hope.
We're working on it. I think, if you think about how frustrating it is to call a help desk in China sometimes, think about how frustrating it's going to be to call an AI help desk to try to get something solved. I'm going to be screaming at the phone. Other questions? Yes, sir.
I'm curious. Do you want me to talk to him?
Yes.
I'm just curious in terms of the decoupling IT. You said that 50% was of what you're running was over with the main company. Did you? I'm curious what role cloud played in that. Was that? And you said that it was. You looked at it as an opportunity, and was part of it just an opportunity to modernize as you move to cloud?
I love the question because I love the cloud. So I'm a firm believer in my own way, yeah, for sure. So for sure, before this entire transformation, we were on average in my footprint above 55% already on the cloud. And in reality, the cloud was the easiest for us to take control. So actually, the cloud environments, without considering all the copy and cleansing that has to happen on the corporate-owned application, has been completed well before spin. Super happy about the teamwork. So, and that tells you a lot. How to split environments is super easy, particularly with certain providers. It's super agile. You control better the cost. So, you know better than me. But in the entire separation, cloud has been also our way to unwind the data center complexity. So we started now 15 months ago, the exit data centers program. I'm reviewing with the team every month. And it's fascinating to see how many apps were targeted to stay on-prem somewhere else, not the same data center, but then the team found a way to move them to the cloud. And you see that always the cloud is going up versus the on-prem. We will still end up having some on-prem. But also, it's also true that we are revisiting and understanding. Should we bring in back certain things on-prem? From a cost standpoint, with the same mindset.
That's fascinating. If you think the pendulum's going to come back from the cloud to some extent?
For sure. If I don't find the right cost profile, I'm not hostage of anyone.
That's fascinating.
Are there particular kinds of applications that you?
And so this is why my own way, because we started going to the cloud quick and dirty, so a lot of lift and shift. Now the teams started embedding a bit more, but without making huge investments. And so we have a captive environment in certain areas, which I don't like. So in reality, without going through major reformatting of every single application that we cannot simply afford, I really need to start showing our partners in the cloud that we can move workloads more easily. So I started asking the team to do an exercise this month to prove that we can move an application from one to another one, because we have dual cloud environments mainly, from one to another, and possibly vice versa.
I think you should write an article for someone, CIO magazine or something,
Yeah.
and put a little bit of pressure on the cloud providers, because if that's
Yes.
your mentality, then it's going to create price pressure.
I
on
mean,
the
my
cloud
team
providers. That's
hates
great.
me. When I come up with these ideas, they hate me. But
No, I think that's great. I think that, when I talk to a lot of industrial companies, and that is the argument. It is about, does it make sense to take what is essentially a low-cost environment that they're maintaining and supporting, even though you don't really want to maintain and support the environment, does it make sense to put that up into a higher cost environment just to say it's in the cloud if the value isn't there?
exactly.
So it's
And
interesting.
now there are all these hardware manufacturers that are coming with interesting proposition. We have a physical location.
Why not?
So the real estate is not, I'm not missing real
Right.
estate. In reality, that's a good way to occupy space. Anyway, it's a sort of pet project that I have in the back of my head. My CTO really hates me.
Well, thank you so much for spending
thank
some
you.
time with us today. Thank you all for joining us. We'll be around for the next couple of minutes if you have any questions you'd like to ask. But thank you for showing up. We certainly appreciate it. And thank you for your questions, and
Thank
look
you.
forward to seeing you later.
Thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much.